This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome to City of Warrenville Public Finance and Safety Committee of the Whole regular meeting, Monday, November 27th, 2023. The Committee of the Whole meeting will be conducted in a traditional in-person format at the location listed above. For convenience, the public may view the meeting virtually using the following going to meeting access information. Public comment will only be available in person during the meeting. Roll call.
Mayor Brummel,
Here.
Alderman Ashour,
Here.
Alderman Augustinovich,
Here.
Alderman Berry,
Here.
Alderman Davalos,
Here.
Alderman Kruckenberg,
Here.
Alderman Lockett,
Here.
Alderman Widener,
Here.
Alderman Wilkie.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Everyone that is able, please rise for the Pledge to Allegiance. The next thing is public comments, in which I don't have any. Is there anybody that would like to make any comments tonight? No takers? We'll move on to officials and staff comments.
Beginning with the mayor.
Starting with the mayor.
Thank you. Just two things. One, if you haven't visited the downtown recently at night, please. It is gorgeous. What a great job of decorating our folks have done this year. Best ever. Very, very, very nice. And if you can't get down during the week, come down Friday night, which is holidays, as always, December 1st. I believe it begins at 6 p.m. If you can find more information on the Park District website. But it's always a lot of fun. We light the tree. Santa Claus is here. A great family time, and it doesn't cost anything, which is really nice right here in town. So come see the decorations. Come have some good things to eat and drink, and listen to some music, and help us light the tree and start the season. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk? No comment? Alderman? No comments? Treasurer? Thank you. Then we'll move on. Oops, I'm sorry. The chief of police would like to make some acknowledgements.
Good evening. The first acknowledgement that we'd like to make is for the Warrenville Police Department is collecting Toys for Tots. This is something that we do each year. And what we're looking for are new unwrapped toys to be donated. They could be dropped off at the police department. This could be from kids, which would be newborns, about age 12. And we'll be collecting those until noon, Thursday, December 7th. So. The second item I have is something very special tonight. We're going to acknowledge one of our local residents, and we're going to acknowledge one of our police officers for a fine job. On January 22nd, 2023, at about 10:21 a.m., Officer Zawacki and Officer Snap were dispatched to SS Street to assist the medics for an unconscious person. UCOM stated that a 17-year-old female was unconscious, not breathing properly. While en route to the call, UCOM then stated that a 17-year-old was no longer breathing and family members were performing CPR. Officer Snap and Officer Zawacki entered the home and noticed a female, Andrea Mondragon, giving CPR to a female, Natalia Mondragon, who was lying on the floor. Officer Snap asked Andrea to step aside so he could check Natalia for a pulse, but was unable to locate one. He initiated CPR until the paramedics could arrive, to which they took over and finally got a pulse back. She was ultimately transported to the hospital, and this is very appropriate after Thanksgiving because she's here with us today. So first, I'd like to acknowledge one of our fine residents, Andrea Mondragon, for her life-saving attempts for her sister. And what a great job that she did. So come on up and please. Stick around. Our second life-saving award will be given to Detective Alexander Snap for, again, his fine efforts in getting there, assessing the scene, and immediately taking the steps to make sure that Natalia is still with us today. So, come on up, Alex. This is very representative of the community partnership that we have with the police department. And again, how appropriate after Thanksgiving that we get to issue this tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on with the business of the meeting. Number one is Friends of the Fourth funding request. Executive Assistant Pavetti.
Thank you. Colin Wilkie is here. He's the director of the Friends of the Fourth, and he can offer the presentation for you.
Esteemed City Council members, I'm here to ask if it would be possible again this year to have an additional $10,000 for the Friends of the Fourth Cerny celebration. It's a two-day celebration that we have on the 3rd and the 4th. We are currently looking at a guesstimated cost coming up for 2024 of about $65,000. And costs are escalating again. You were nice enough to give us a $10,000 addition last year, which came in very handy because if you remember, for the last 2 years, on the 4th of July, it came down in buckets. And we lost about 6 hours this year due to people just not wanting to get too wet out in Cerny. So we had lower expectations, unfortunately, for our collection for the parade and also for the costs that we had for food. We had unfortunately one of the people bow out at the last minute because there was a death in the family. So hopefully you have the letter in front of you that states out exactly what's going on for the fireworks display this year. It's going to be $24,000. Water bill donations were also down this year, and we ended up with a smaller stage this past year, but it worked out well. I think any of you that went to the celebration enjoyed yourselves, and we had a great entertainment lined up. And again, if you have any specific questions, just let me know, and I can answer them.
Comments or questions from the council? Mayor?
Well, I, for one, am happy to help you out. You do a fantastic job every year, and always trying circumstances, it seems. It never seems to go completely smoothly, but it never seems to make any difference because the effort always pays off. So I think the support is appropriate that we give you, and you use it very, very well every year. And I thank you very much for the efforts, especially for the committee that meets monthly, year round, to make sure that this thing works out. It's not just a one-time deal. I appreciate the effort that goes into it for those monthly meetings also. So thanks, Colin.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions, comments? No. Alderman Widener?
I noticed we're at the end of a 3 or 5 year contract run or something like that, and I just have been reading more and more about the pollutant levels and things like that that occur after fireworks are discharged, and I just wonder if it'd be possible in the next go-around of contract talks to just discuss to see if they have any environmental assessments on what they do. As a preference, I know that the last city survey, citizens had high regard for the environment and taking care of things. And I also wanted to express appreciation for the fact that I think there's fewer and fewer aerial bombs every year, and I think that's appreciated by all the pets in Warrenville, and also many people who have served as in the armed forces. So thank you for that, and thank you to your committee.
As a group, we actually looked last year at doing drones and laser shows. They are getting more popular. Unfortunately, they're still pretty expensive. Anything that would be close to what we're doing right now would be about $63,000. And what they do is they send the drones up for about 10 minutes, which is the battery life, and then they have another set of drones that goes up past that. So it's a very good technical possibility, but right now costs are just not where they should be. But yes, we'll do look at the bombs, and we're actually cutting them back down again. We're trying to get higher and higher than the trees, and unfortunately, that's just not possible anymore without the fallout zone going far larger than Bauer School.
Well, again, thank you for your efforts, and it shows a lot of leadership on your part to investigate the drones and check out on their pricing. I know they're extremely expensive right now and probably wouldn't satisfy the people gathered in Cerny Park with the displays right now either, because it's would be a short-lived program even at $63,000 for the program. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Before we have a motion, I just want to thank you again for all you do.
Thank you. Thank all of those.
Alderman Lockett?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the city council direct staff to include an additional $10,000 for a total of $51,000 in funding for the fiscal year 2025 Independence Day celebration.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Item number 2, CY 2024 Police Department donation solicitation. Chief Bonilla.
Hi, good evening again. This is for a request for authorization to solicit and accept donations for our 2024 Special Olympics events and our National Night Out, pursuant to our city policy, of course. What we do is we do solicitations for National Night Out. We have vendor participation. We have donations that are given to the police department to make that event special. Again, in the interest of our community partnership and having a special event to invite all of our residents out to come and join us, and everybody have a special day on that day. Last year was an amazing event with the amount of people that came out, and that's only possible through the donations and of time and money and gifts that we utilize for that event, and it makes it really special for us. So we were asking for permission for that. Also for our Special Olympics, which helps us, what we do is we solicit donations for the Special Olympics in items that are sold, Special Olympics paraphernalia, T-shirts, sweatshirts, things of that nature. And then the police department also, and the fire department also participates in many events throughout the year to raise money for that. The polar plunge, for one, which I won't forget because I participated in that, which was awfully frigid. So those are just a couple of things that we want to request permission to solicit donations for each year that really make the city of Warrenville special. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the council? We have a motion. Alderman Lockett.
I'd like to make a motion, City Council approve the request to solicit donations for all calendar year 2024 events, including National Night Out Against Crime and Special Olympics Law Enforcement Torch Run events.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those that approve, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. Motion is approved. Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Widener.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to the next three agenda items. They're all somewhat similar in that we're disposing of surplus and unclaimed property. And I was just, would like to put forth a motion that we combine items 3, 4, and 5, if the council would see it that way. It's something that we routinely do at the city, utilizing these services to dispose of city property and unclaimed found property. So with that, I make a motion to combine items 3, 4, and 5 on this evening's agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? I was going to ask if anybody had any discussion, but I don't think there's any disagreement.
Pretty routine.
The motion passes, so we're,
Now you have to make the motion on it.
oh, I'm sorry.
You don't have to, but he will.
Okay, go ahead. Alderman White.
Yes, combining items 3, 4, and 5, I make a motion to consideration of request to dispose of surplus unclaimed found property, parentheses 13 bicycles, through donation to Working Bikes Incorporated. And item number 4, motion to consider request to dispose of surplus city property being 4 fleet vehicles. And finally, to include in this motion, consideration of a request to dispose of surplus city property utilizing propertyroom.com for radio equipment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'm sorry, Alderman, or Administrator.
So we just want to clarify, the motion is a recommendation to city council to do all of those actions.
Right, not consideration.
Right.
Thank you.
Do we have any comments from the chief on that, or?
No, as stated, this is pretty routine and something that we do on a regular basis. So there's nothing extraordinary about anything in here. So thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is number 6, CY24 City Liability Insurance Renewal. Human Resource Generalist Ochoa.
Good evening, thank you. This evening, I present to you the city's 2024 annual insurance renewals for the currently held city insurance coverages. The renewal rate is $510,100, which is an overall 12.65% increase from the 2023 rate of $452,809. While the overall insurance market remains very challenging with significant rate increases, the city has received an overall favorable package renewal for the calendar year 2024. Most communities are seeing a 10 to 15% increase at renewal time. Our workers' compensation carrier has reserved $30,865 in grant monies for the city to use for safety-related equipment training and programming. This is due to having a claims loss ratio of below 20%. But we strongly believe that this is due part of the Safety Committee's ongoing efforts to mitigate risks through policy updates and timely accident reviews, but most importantly, the city's staff everyday commitment to follow best and safe practices in the workplace every day, and also their participation in safety trainings throughout the year. I also included with your agenda backup materials is a letter from Rich Stoklowska, our city's consultant from Gallagher, further explaining the renewal quotes, loss trends, insurance market report for June 2023. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks. Any questions or comments from the council? Alderman Davalos?
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to clarify, in the backup material, they talked about this workman's compensation, Illinois Public Rate Force, wait a minute, fund, sorry, not good. I guess we received this $30,865 grant, and then is it another $15,594 grant? So these are for other things other than paying this insurance bill, right?
Right, it's to purchase safety equipment. We use it to purchase one of our, like local gov is one of our training modules that we use. Lexipol is one of the police officers use, so it's for other things. It doesn't necessarily go towards the renewals of these insurances.
Okay, so they're two separate things. Okay, thank you.
Alderman Widener?
I know this is a sharp increase, but I really thought the report was worthwhile, and it's good to know that the city is working with Gallagher, who I think on the last page, they talk about that ethics is in their DNA and that they are 13-time honorees. So I think, once again, we're working with the best, and I appreciate staff's selection of carriers and things like that to keep us safe. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other alderman? Could I have a motion? Alderman Lockett?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the city council accept a renewal quote from Gallagher for city insurance coverages for calendar year 2024 in the amount of $510,100.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 7, Safety Incentive Policy Amendment. Human Resource Generalist Ochoa.
Thank you again. I am presenting you an amendment to the Employee Safety Committee Incentive Program Policy. The existing Employee Safety Committee Incentive Program Policy was adopted by City Council in 2005. It is a reward-based initiative that acknowledges safety performance in the workplace. Employees must maintain a record of 1 calendar year without accidents in order to be eligible for the annual incentive. A copy of the Safety Committee Incentive Program Policy should be as part of your packet. Item C is the item that we are proposing for amendment. This amendment will allow an employee who has lost the eligibility for the annual safety incentive an opportunity to earn the eligibility once through completion of a safety training assigned by their supervisor. Completing the safety training after an avoidable accident benefits the individual and also contributes to a safer work environment for all employees. The proposed amendment has been reviewed and approved by the Safety Committee and senior staff.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Seeing none, Alderman Lockett.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I think this is a great idea. It kind of goes with the insurance in regards to the work comp. The more we can do to keep everybody safe, the lower it's going to make our insurance, which only helps us, which in turn saves us money. So, and I think we're talking 72 employees, I think there was, so it's like $3,000 or something But again, one person gets hurt, and that could easily cost us way more than that just on the renewals. So I think it's a great idea. So thank you.
Thank you.
Someone like to make a motion? Alderman Widener.
Yeah, make a motion to recommend City Council approve an amendment to the Employee Safety Committee Incentive Program Policy to include new subsection C, which provides for an employee to earn back eligibility by completing a supervisor-assigned safety training program.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We'll move on to item number 8, Paid Leave for All Workers Act opt-out ordinance. Assistant Administrator Morgan.
Thank you, and good evening. In March, the state of Illinois legislature passed a Paid Leave for All Workers Act, which goes into effect on January 1st. In summary, this act requires employers provide a 1 hour of unrestricted paid time off for every 40 hours worked for every employee. The unrestricted requirements of the act will create administrative burdens for many employers, but particularly for local government, which have an obligation to provide statutory services to the general public. The act is not clearly written, and over the last several months, the legal interpretations have varied, but most do agree that an employer cannot restrict the use of the time off, and that could critically impact city operations. A draft ordinance is presented this evening to the committee. It has been reviewed by City Attorney Lenneman, and it's also been reviewed by the city's labor and employment attorney, Kelly Coyle. Both city staff and the attorneys recommend that the council pass an ordinance opting out of the Paid Leave for All Workers Act. The act does not preempt the city's home rule authority. Thereby, it does allow the city to leverage its authority to opt out. And I would also like to note that the city's existing time off benefits for full-time employees exceed the act's requirements. And while we do not currently offer time off benefits for part-time and seasonal employees, we will be recommending a time off policy for these positions with the next agenda item to keep within the spirit of the act. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Alderman Davalos, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this, but just curious about other non-rural or home rule municipalities. Do you have any sense of how people are coming on board with this, or how they're discerning where they stand?
I can answer that.
Okay.
DuPage Mayors and Managers takes the same position. This is a very poorly written act, and it will cause a lot of grief to a lot of communities. So we are absolutely in line with the other communities in DuPage County.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Alderman Widener.
And make a motion to recommend the City Council approve the revised employee personnel manual. Or wait, wrong one. We're on 8, right? Motion to recommend the City Council pass an ordinance to opt out of Illinois Paid Leave for All Workers Act 820 ILCS 192/1 TSEQ for all City of Warrenville employees.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Move on to number 9, Employee Personnel Manual Updates. Assistant Administrator Morgan.
Thank you. Periodically, the city reviews and revises the employee personnel manual to ensure that policies are kept up to date and relevant to city operations and any new legislation. Most of the updates for this manual are really just to clean up current language. However, there is a significant amendment that staff is proposing by adding section 4.11 for paid time off leave. This section extends paid time off benefits to part-time, seasonal, and crossing guard employees, which is not a benefit the city currently offers these positions. The cost for this added benefit is approximately $3,700 in year one, and that is based on the current rate of pay for all of those positions. And although city staff and our city attorneys recommend the city pass an ordinance to opt out of the Paid Leave for All Workers Act, as mentioned in the previous agenda item, staff does recommend the addition of this paid time off benefit on a prorated basis for these positions. This benefit will help keep within the spirit of the act, help the city to remain competitive with recruitment efforts in the future, and also takes into consideration the city's operational needs. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks. Any questions? Do we have a motion? Oh, Alderman Lockett?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the city council approve the revised employee personnel manual.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Number 10, FYI 25 elected official budget consideration submissions. Finance Director Dahlstrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Included with your agenda backup tonight are two elected official budget consideration requests, which were submitted by the November 1st deadline as we are working on our FY 2025 budget. The first item is Ferry Creek Stream revitalization effort in Warrenville. And item number 2 is an increasing Warrenville's tree canopy. The items were submitted by Alderman Widener and Kruckenberg, and I would like to suggest that they walk us through each of those individually, as we do need to know whether they are to continue on in our FY 2025 budget process, or if they go some other direction with those.
Any questions from council? Alderman Davalos?
Thank you. One of the reasons I like this backup material is I didn't realize we actually were executing our decisions from last December so quickly. So I want to say thank you, because the EAC was behind this, and we voted on council. People were starting this about 100 trees a year. And so I'm really happy to see that happened. I'm very happy to see that it happened in Summer Lakes. I think they needed it, one of the places that needed it the most. I read through the backup material, and I'm just a little confused on if the city was just trying to give us information on the amount of work it was going to be, and was sort of discouraging doing the whole 200, or maybe we didn't have enough data. Could you just expand a little bit on your thoughts about, I mean, I'm in favor of putting as many trees as we can, but I'm also want to manage it with the other demands of staff and what is practical for our particular situation. So do you have anything else you could say about that?
I don't know that staff's really encouraging or discouraging it, or neutral on it. We have data. I can tell you how much it took us I think it took us less than 3 days to plant the 100 trees this year, but it was in the easiest tree planting project we're going to have throughout this whole process, because we planted in a corridor where we didn't have to interact with a whole lot of residents. And what I mean by that is the residential properties didn't front the street in that area, so we just we picked the trees and planted them along that way. Going forward, as we work through actual neighborhoods, there's going to be an outreach effort in advance to the neighborhood to say, we're coming in your neighborhood this year, and want to know from you if you have an available planting space in front of your property, if you would, in the right of way, if you'd like to have the city plant a tree at no cost, and we would just ask that the residents would take care of watering the tree for us. And then there's a lot of coordination with the individual residents and actually evaluating the spot, with utilities and other nearby trees, evaluating the type of species, because of course, if we don't want a whole neighborhood full of maple trees, so whenever the next bug comes in that kills all the maple trees, doesn't wipe out an entire neighborhood, we're looking for a diverse population of trees. So I can't speak, we don't have data on how much time it's going to take to interact with the residents at this point. We know it will be significant because we're going to be talking individually with each one that wants a tree.
Yeah, so is there any advantage in seeing how the 100 trees works for one more year and then maybe expanding like another 50 and then another 50 or something. I'm trying to discern how to vote on this because I have a huge bias for trees. But again, I don't know if we're increasing by 100% when we've just finished only 1 year. So I'm just looking for more information on people's thoughts about that. So thank you for your thoughts.
Alderman Widener.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that planting additional trees in light of what Phil just said, that it was an easy process and it went really smoothly. I think we will have to have some communications with the residents, but I think we will find when we look at the canopy that there are specific areas that we won't be planting these trees all over town. So there will be, I guess, an efficiency or an economy in planting in specific areas. And I'm hoping that the EAC volunteers would help with our communications with the neighbors. We had discussed that when we sat down with Director Kukler. And so any amount of additional trees over the 100 would be great, because when we did the Davy inventory in 2020, they again found that there were like about 1,000 tree planting opportunities in Warrenville, and we're kind of lacking. For the past 10 years, there was a very limited tree planting program. There were more trees taken down because of, as you know, because of emerald ash borer than there were trees planted. So any amount of trees that we can plant to help catch us up over those like 10 years of not planting many trees, I think would be beneficial. And I know it is an added program and a constraint on staff, but I just think we need to look at the number of trees and potentially increase them by as much as staff time and grant dollars and city investment will allow. Thank you.
Mayor?
Thank you. Just on the Ferry Creek item, my suggestion would be, I'm all in favor of taking a look at this, but my suggestion would be, as is in your backup, that we approach DuPage County and see what their work program is and what their plan is for Ferry Creek before we invest any money in it, because there might be, they have been very, very good, I've been served on the Stormwater Committee for 10 or 12 years now. They've been really good about responding to these types of things. We might be able to get help from them that would determine what we would be able to do, and it might lessen our burden with their participation. So my suggestion would be to take that item to the county, bring it back to the council to take a look at it again after we've had the county take a look at it, and maybe we can get some help there. It is a good idea to do, but let's see if we have any outside help before we take any action. My suggestion on the trees, as long as it's not going to affect our work program and our priorities, I personally say we haven't done the 100 yet. I would do the 100 first, and then if that goes well, move on and increase the number. So I'm not sure that I support the idea of going immediately to doubling the number when we haven't done the first part yet. Let's do the first part, see how it goes, make it happen, and then come back and do the second part. So those would be my observations, but of course, whatever the council decides.
Alderman Rutherford.
In regards to the Ferry Creek Stream revitalization, I am in agreement with the mayor. I think there's a bigger scale project out there, and I think, getting in touch with DuPage County, I think we can determine what this project could be, and maybe, I think this has been very good discussion, between Alderman Widener, myself, and staff. And I think, we can get the ball rolling, hopefully, on something there. In regards to the trees, I'm also okay with waiting and gathering more data. We'll have software that we can track effort and cost, and then maybe we can make a determination how many additional trees, if any, makes sense for us, so.
Alderman Lockett.
Yeah, ditto. Same thing with the Ferry Creek stuff. In regards to the trees, I would be in favor of a minimum of 100 trees, and then maybe we just word it up to 200, right? I mean, obviously, I know you guys are going to do everything you can to put in as many trees as you can, as long as you have the cooperation and everything from the residents and you're getting everything back that you need. But do you think that if you were to do the 200 trees, that we would have to hire more people to do it?
So I don't think that right now we'd be, to plant 200 trees in a year, we'd have to hire more people. I think longer term, when you look at the big picture, we've got 4,000 trees approximately in the city right now, street and the right of ways. It takes us about 800 hours to prune the 20% of those trees every year. If you're adding 25% more trees over, in the next 5 years by going 200 trees per year, that's 1,000 trees, and 1,000 trees is 25% of 4,000. You're going to be increasing, just within those 5 years, adding another 200 hours worth of work of tree pruning to those, the trees. And even then, I don't know, that doesn't necessarily mean 200 hours is not an entire person. I mean, there's 2,000 hours in a year, something less than that when you factor in vacation and holidays and that kind of stuff. But over time, it's just to demonstrate that as you're adding this, that's 200 hours that staff is going to be spending pruning trees that we're currently spending doing something else. So it may not be in the next 5 years you have to add a person. It might be 10, 15 years. You start having to talk about either adding a person or reducing services or farming stuff out and using contractors to do the work.
Okay. And would summer help? If
Not for
we
pruning trees.
Well, not for necessarily pruning, but maybe for the actual planting of them? Do they do any of that type of work?
They don't. I mean, we looked at this year possibly if we need watering for the trees, because we did, actually, to be clear, Mayor, we did plant the first 100 trees in October this year. And so like if those trees need watering during the summer as it gets warmer and if we have dry weather, we're going to utilize the summer help to help us with that as opposed to, because there aren't residents that are going to be able to help contribute to that.
All right. And then the last question was, is there really an exclamation tree?
Yeah, I guess that's the list that Jeff Simmons provided to me that from Kankakee Nursery. So yes, there's an
Exclamation point and everything, so it just yells at you when you walk by?
Yep.
Or
Yeah, very positive.
if we could plant those everywhere, that would be awesome. Thank you. And I guess one final comment, just how lucky we are to have Public Works that has the capability to trim these trees, to plant these trees, saves this community so much money, because if it were to go out to bid, it would just be astronomical. I mean, we wouldn't even be able to afford, to plant 25 trees, let alone maintain them or prune them. Maybe it's not 25, but you know what I'm saying. We save a lot of money by doing it in-house, so I just want to let you know we appreciate that. Thanks.
And the only request I'd make to follow up what you had said about like a minimum of 100 to 200 trees. From staff's perspective, we'd like direction on how many you want us to plant. If it's 100, we'll plant 100. If it's 200, then we'll plan to plant 200. But I'd really not rather have a range so we're all on the same page about what the expectation is for staff to plant trees.
Alderman Davalos?
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody, I hope I'm right, that we've already committed to 100 every year. That was done last December. So we're already doing that. And so I certainly, in the future, am interested in finding a way to do more in a gradual level. And you talked about places we could go to get those trees and everything. You talked about an arborist maybe we would need, and that would be expensive. We won't know if we need probably for a while. So I wish we could make some, even if it was just 25 more trees or something. I just want to get through the 12 months, starting with the growing season, and see how we're doing and what that looks like. So I guess I'm in favor of an increase. I know we'll have 100 again this year. I guess I should look at the aldermen that are proposing this. Is there some way we could just increase a smaller amount for this next year? Or, or the next 2 years or something? This is where I'm on the fence. Do you guys have any comments, the alderman that proposed this, about that? About how much over 100?
I have a question, and it's if we're going to plant 100 trees a year, we don't have to plant them all in 1 year. I mean, if that's going to be the program, but the idea is to get ahead on the trees, not to plant them all in 1 year. Is there that urgency is my question.
Well, the vote was, for last year, the plan that, that was presented was that we would, going forward, plan on planting 100 trees per year. That's already done. The 100's done. It's now, what do we want to, I mean, the goal is a great goal, where we're supposed to be. Because there are neighborhoods that are way behind in trees. And it's not just that they look pretty, but they affect their home value, they affect electricity, they affect lots of other things that just, oh, what a pretty tree. So I want everybody in Warrenville, no matter what neighborhood they live in, to have a chance at that. But I'm just trying to figure out, do we want to do more than 100? Or do we want to wait, or do we just want to do a little more? I mean, we just passed it a year ago, so that's my concern, is what we want to do. Because we already have the 100.
Alderman Widener?
I guess my concern is the overall goal in Warrenville and for many municipalities is to have a tree canopy percentage of somewhere in the range of 30 to 40%. Now, most of Warrenville rests in between that 30 and 40%. There's portions of Warrenville that were struck by emerald ash borer where they're in broad sunlight and there's a higher heat index and so forth. So, and those areas are mainly on the west side of Route 59 that need the planting. And again, Davy did an estimate of how many tree planting opportunities they were, and they quit counting after 1,000 because it was a pandemic year. We were very concerned about our budgets, and it would have required an amendment to find the total number of tree planting opportunities in Warrenville. So we know that there's a minimum of 1,000, and at 100 a year, it'll take 10 years or more to fill in that gap. From my recollection, I thought the standard on newly planted trees is that they generally, and maybe Alderman Kruckenberg can weigh in on this too, they're smaller trees, so they don't need pruning and a lot of maintenance other than watering for 8 years. And I just thought with the report that we had from staff with the ease of how this year's planting went and how quickly it went, that we could possibly up that to make up for this deficit that will, eventually be filled in at 100 trees a year. But, that's waiting 10 years for people that are already paying higher fuel bills and that are in sunstruck areas and so forth. So it's up to the council and what your vision for the future is and how you want to, address the tree canopy and get to the 32 to 40% tree canopy recommendation that's recommended by arborists and Morton Arboretum and other authorities. Thank you.
Alderman Berry?
The 100 trees, we've only done this for 1 year. I'd like to know if all the trees were planted in the right-of-way, correct? And they were not planted on personal property.
Correct.
So, was it recommended to the homeowner that lived closest to that right-of-way that they water these trees? I'd like to know what percentage of trees have survived in 1 year. We had a drought. Well, I don't know when all the trees were planted. So, when were they? October. So we were out of the drought. So I like to know by next year how many of these trees survived. We might plant 100, but do 80 survive? If the resident that's closest to their tree doesn't take care of it, how are we going around and watering these trees? Are we doing that? We're relying on somebody else to do that.
So, The trees that were planted this year are not going to be watered by residents. It's in a corridor, it's on Continental Drive, both sides of the street between Route 59 and Johnson School, and there are very few spots where trees were actually planted directly in front of somebody's property. I mean, a lot of that on the south side of the road runs along Summer Lakes, the kind of common area, the homeowners association area. So if needed, the city will use its summer seasonal staff to help water those trees next year. The little smaller trees we're planting won't take as much water, which we're hoping will help with survivability. It's going to help them adapt quicker to where they were planted. Going forward, we will be relying on residents to water the trees, and that's one of the criteria we're going to use as to whether or not we're going to plant a tree in a given spot. I mean, if a resident wants a tree, and especially if the city's going to do all the work and plant it for free, I think residents generally will be willing to water the trees. If they aren't willing to do that, then we'll skip over them and move on to somebody who is willing to help out and water the tree.
But we would have to rely on those residents to do that.
Correct.
But my only issue then is I would like to see several years of what happens to these trees when we plant 100. How many survive? What is the percentage? And then go from there and see if we increase the number to 125, 150, but not go from 100 to 200 immediately. I just need to see how they react and how they survive. And I guess a lot of that has to do with the weather itself then, especially if these trees are in somewhere like Summer Lakes along Continental, where maybe the homeowners association themselves would water these trees. I know we just had 6 trees at our location at work planted this year because we had emerald ash borer and they had to be replaced. They were on our private property and did not belong to the city. But we had to take one of our maintenance people away from our plant, and he had to be out there and he had to water the trees. And it took away from his regular job. So I know how time-consuming that can be. So my recommendation would be just to wait a few years, let's see how the program works, and then go from there. Thanks.
Alderman Lockett?
Do we get a warranty from the nurseries on the trees? Like a typical 1 year where they'll replace it if in the event something happens to it?
Yeah, I'd have to look at what the warranty actually says. I mean, it's ultimately if you don't water it, I mean, if you get a tree and don't water it, I doubt if there's a warranty that'll cover the tree surviving.
Right. They just don't know if you watered it or not, you know?
Yeah, my guess is it's probably easy for an arborist or somebody that's a professional to
tell.
see if the tree died because it was dried out.
And then,
wasn't watered.
have we ever planted trees in the right of way? Like how we're talking, moving forward? Have we ever done that?
We have.
Historically, we haven't had a program we've planted. I think the closest thing I can think of is when, about 10 or 12 years ago, we took down, there was like 600 to 700 ash trees because emerald ash borer. We didn't plant back at a 1-to-1 rate, but I think we were close. I mean, we don't have documentation specifically on how many trees we planted, but staff has estimated it's about 90% because some of the residents just didn't want a tree planted back in front of their property.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm just trying to think, because it's totally different from what we did this year, what we're going to be doing moving forward. It's different to plant 100 trees in an open area side by side right next to each other, not have to really communicate with anybody. But now we need to communicate with 100 different individual residents, get answers, they say no, move on to the next, to the next, to the next. And then the actual time has not been tracked to see how long that actually takes us to plant each one of those trees, each condition probably being somewhat different. You know, each one is not going to be, it'd be close to being the same, but we haven't tracked that yet. So it's very hard for us to say, okay, yeah, we're going to do 200 or 150 or whatever it may be. Is there a number that you would be comfortable with? Just,
The actual tree planting part of it, I'm not all that concerned about. So if we plant 200 trees compared to 100, if it took us 2.5 days or 3 days this year, you're looking at 5 or 6 days next year. That's not a substantial amount of time. It's the uncertainty is the communication piece and how much time we're going to spend dealing with the residents. Maybe it'll go faster than I expect. I don't know, but you are taking the time to actually talk with them and find out what they want, and if there is a little bit of back and forth on what type of species they want and where they want it and that kind of stuff, it's, the time builds up in a hurry.
Okay. Because I guess that's what we're trying to figure out is the number of trees, right? Ultimately, that's what we're trying to figure out.
Alderman Davalos?
Yeah, since the trees were just planted in October, right?
Correct.
So we're 6 weeks out, or well, maybe 8. And so I really think we need to wait at least a year and see, take a look at this again as we plant them next year. And, I mean, I think it's not a bad idea to keep it in front of us and continue to maybe do a few more, see how it goes. What do we learn? What's the best way to communicate? Maybe we develop a written communication piece for residents so they understand. I mean, and the EAC can probably help in a few of those things. But it seems like 8 weeks out from the first planting, we just need a little time to evaluate not only staff, but, you know, are we going to need an arborist? Who knows? At some point for a consultation. I just really don't know. That's one of the things I think we don't know. So I'd like to keep this on as a decision package, maybe not this year, but maybe next. Because I think it's kind of nice to increase as we go along and we learn things. I just think we have to at least give it a year. I'm sort of agreeing with some of the things Alderman Berry and some of the other aldermen are saying, that we just need more information. So that would be the way that I might look at it. Thanks.
Mayor?
There's two parts of this motion. The first part, I think we've already determined, everyone agrees that we're going to consult with the county, so that's done. The second part is whether or not we stick with the existing program of 100 trees or we increase it. I think, I certainly appreciate the effort that's put in by the alderman, and the intent is excellent. I guess I share the concern that our program is relatively new and we don't know how successful the existing program is before we expand it. So my recommendation is we stay with the same program, make sure that it works well, and then next year we'd be in a position to make an expansion actually based on information that we have. And then we'll also have a better idea, too, of how much time is involved for staff. Obviously, the planting thing is not a big deal. It's the consultation with the people and all the paperwork involved. The administrative part of it is probably somewhat onerous, at least at the beginning. But we'll have a year of experience to use to determine how we move ahead. So again, I appreciate the thought. I think it's a great idea. We should certainly continue in that direction. But for the moment, I think we're best served by using the program that we've already voted on. So that would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Any other comments? I guess we're at, how is best to move forward on this?
Make a motion.
Someone want to make a motion? It's either to accept, change, modify.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is on the Ferry Creek item, the motion would be recommend City Council approve a work plan item for fiscal year '25 to work with the county to determine if there is a partnership with the Ferry Creek revitalization, something along those lines. And then on the trees, it sounds like the consensus is not to include anything new in the work plan for fiscal year '25 and to stick with the current program based on the most recent comments made.
Alderman Lockett?
Give it a whirl. I'd like to make a motion, recommend the city council work with DuPage County in regard. Okay. I'd like to make a motion.
You could just say what she said.
Yeah, said.
So moved.
Dawn, could you read that back, please? Oh.
Okay, so I think the motion we want is recommend City Council direct staff to include a work plan item for fiscal year '25 to work with the DuPage County Stormwater Commission on a discussion of revitalization of Ferry Creek. Does that provide enough direction?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, practically what's going to happen is we'll reach out to DuPage County Stormwater Management and ask where Ferry Creek falls within their priorities, because I'm sure there's somewhere in their priorities, it's just a matter of where it falls. And then if it's close, then that might be good enough and we can work with them in short order. Or if it's, say, 20 years out, then maybe we could ask them, well, what can we do to bump that up the priority list? But it's going to be a discussion with them to see where it's at and then how we might advocate to get it bumped up in priorities.
So let's keep it as, just recommend city council direct staff to include a work plan item in fiscal year 25 to discuss Ferry Creek revitalization with the county. Don, do you get that? Okay, perfect.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion, the city council directs staff to work on a work plan item for fiscal year 2025 with DuPage County in regards to, and having a stormwater discussion in regards to the Ferry Creek revitalization. And 2, recommend city council approve maintaining the existing 2025 tree program at 100 trees.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion's approved. The informational update on the CY 23 property tax levy, Director Dahlstrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first reading of the 2023 property tax levy will be held on the December 4th City Council agenda. The second reading and a public hearing will be held at the December 18th, or as a part of the December 18th City Council meeting agenda. Some notes is that the Winfield Township EAVs, according to information obtained from the assessor's office, are projected to increase approximately 6.9%. And in Naperville Township, from that assessor's office, EVs are projected to increase 6.7%. I'm still awaiting new construction values from Winfield Township, and the Naperville Township is working on firming up theirs. It'll be between 10.5 million and approximately 13 million. That information is a little bit delayed as DuPage County is working on implementing a new system, which is a little bit delaying that information that they normally obtain from them. Also, the 2023 tax cap is 5%. The police pension levy actuarially determined will increase by a little over $61,000, or about 5.19%. We will look to continue 2004's ordinance number 2118 and self-impose our taxes we've done every year since. The projected EAV as of right now, and again, it still has to be revised, is a little over $610 million for 2023. A final note is that the abatement ordinance that we need in relation to the bonds that we issued in April is required to be passed before the end of February 2024. However, in keeping with discussions we've had previously, I've asked our bond counsel at Chapman to prepare that ordinance in time for the 12/18 City Council agenda. So we look to have it on there. If it's not on there, it's not a huge issue, but I thought, since we discussed doing that all at one time, we would try and accomplish that if they're able to prepare that ordinance in time.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Thank you very much. Move on to number 12, Flock Safety Incorporated Agreement Consideration and Added Cameras. Chief Bonilla?
Yes, thank you. The police department was contacted by Flock Safety Inc. regarding the renewal of our contract. Our current contract is set to expire on March 1st of 2024. They approached Deputy Chief Dawson with a potential 5-year agreement that's only valid through December 31st. That agreement included price increases for flock cameras to go from $2,500 a camera to $3,000 a camera. Now, we had initially intended to include on our 2025 budget request to add additional cameras. However, in light of the price increase that we're being faced with for the renewal of that, we wanted to not only request authorization to approve the current contract, but also to add the additional 5 cameras that we had intended to ask for. We had City Attorney Brooke Lenneman overlook the contract. She made some corrections to it. We sent it back. Flock Safety Inc. agreed to the corrections the way that we wanted them for the city's needs. So again, we just wanted to make sure that we have all of our areas covered with our flock. Now, to kind of remind everybody what these flock cameras are, they're not necessarily cameras to keep an eye out on what everyone's doing. What they are just license plate recognition readers. They only hit on certain license plates that are flagged for either a suspended driver, a revoked driver, a driver who's wanted for a crime, a stolen auto. We currently have 9 cameras now that are set throughout Warrenville, and we've had some really good success with those cameras as far as fighting crime coming in and out of Warrenville, which we've included a few examples of those with the packet, so that way the council could see kind of like what we're utilizing these for within the department. Again, with the price increase about to hit, we wanted to make sure that we got in on the previous deal of $2,500 before they increased on us for the additional cameras. Now, we sat down and we talked about these additional cameras and where we wanted to put them for future use. And sometimes the cameras cover the roadway, depending on how wide the roadway is. Sometimes they could cover the whole roadway and we won't have to worry about having a camera in one direction or the other. However, there are some roadways that are pretty wide within Warrenville that we want to make sure that we're covering either north and south or east and west. So what we did was we wanted to supplement all of our cameras, not for just randomly throughout town, but to make sure that at least our borders are covered with these. The in and out of I-88, the north and south of Winfield Road, the east and west of Butterfield Road, in different locations closer to Route 59 and further east, and also to cover areas covering north of 59 and south of Route 59. Again, the location of the cameras are all strategically located where we feel best that we would need those cameras to make sure that we're covered. After the 5 cameras, I can't say definitively that we will never ask for more cameras, but I could certainly say that within the next year, at least, we'll be covered under this contract, and that should satisfy our needs as a police department and as a city.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Alderman Davalos?
Yeah, I think these cameras are a great idea. My fear, or my wondering is, wow, we've only had these since March and it's already up 20% to get another camera. And I don't know, it just seems, I guess we'll have that camera for the next 5 years at that cost. I mean, once we've bought it, we have it, we're just paying the, $147,000 or whatever to take care of the 14 cameras.
Correct. And
Okay.
that covers all of the cameras under that contract that we have, including any
Okay.
additional cameras that we add.
Do you have any sense, or does anyone in this field have any sense of how long these cameras last?
Actually, I don't.
I mean, so they're sort of new, so maybe nobody really
Right.
knows.
Maybe nobody knows yet, but I'm sure there's certain warranties that cover those cameras. If they fail within a certain period, that I'd have to research and let you know.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Alderman Lockett?
We don't maintain the cameras, right? They install them, they maintain them, they own them, correct?
They basically do everything with those.
Everything.
They apply for the permits, because these are also on state and county roads, even though they're through our municipal corporation here. They apply for the permits, they do the install, and then they maintain them as well.
Okay, so it's all in one-stop shop?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Any more questions from the council? Alderman Lockett?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the city council approve the Flock Safety, Inc. proposed 5-year agreement and to include installation of 5 additional LPR cameras.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Move on to item number 13, informational update on the Administration, Finance, Police Department work plan. This is information only. If anybody has any questions. Any questions from the council? Then we'll move on. Item number 14 is a canvas of votes update from, I'm sorry, Alderman Lockett.
Yeah, I just had a quick comment or for Chief on the work plan for the police department with the recruiting, the lateral recruiting that we're doing now for getting the police, other police officers in. Could you just explain that a little bit? Because I think it's like really important, and I think it's just how it's different from what we used to do.
Yes, so absolutely. We, historically, what we've done is we've put advertisements out to solicit applications for new officers with no experience. That new officer would then take a written test. They would apply, take a written test, go through several other background information, and then we would send them to the police academy for, it's now 16 weeks of training. Once they graduate the police academy, they would then come back and do another approximately 3 months of field training with a field training officer to kind of get to know the streets. That whole process is rather long process. So if we have an officer who either retires or leaves or for whatever reason, departs Warrenville, and we have to get an officer to replace them, historically, that is a very long process because we don't hire the officer until that spot becomes vacant, even if we know that they're going to depart. So it's a long process before we even get an officer on the street. However, with the lateral program, what we're doing is we're now opening this process up to officers that are actually officers already. They're already trained, they've already have specialization skills that we don't have to worry about, and we're basically seizing upon an opportunity to obtain officers that are prepackaged and already ready to go. We literally have to get them on board, do an orientation with them. They would go through a somewhat modified field training to get acclimated to the city of Warrenville, and then they're on their own, just like that. So with the lateral program, it's a much quicker process to get an officer on the street once we lose one.
It's just such a great idea, and doing whatever it takes to help, fill vacancies and to think outside the box and do things and kind of get up to speed. Because basically, somebody could come from another department, they could be with us up and running in 6 weeks or whatever it may be, rather than them coming from another department, starting over, and then having to spend 6, 7, 8 months of training, redoing it before they're back on the street on their own. So
Right.
that's why I just thought it was so important, and I think we just implemented this a couple months ago.
We did.
Yeah, so
Yep.
it was just such a great idea, so thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Mayor Brummel would like to make a comment.
Sure, a couple things, Chief. One, first of all, we have not in any way, shape, or form lowered our standards in terms of the officers that we accept, correct?
There is not a chance I would lower my standards in the officers that we
I
get.
just want to make sure everyone understood that it's a new program, but it does not involve any compromise in what we expect of the officers. The other thing is that my understanding, conversations with other chiefs, is that things have changed a little bit in terms of what officers are looking for these days. It used to be that the pay scale was maybe the paramount thing that made them make the decision of where they wanted to go, but that's changed, that officers now are more interested in finding a community that they're compatible with. It's a great place to work. So it's interesting to me that we already have 2 officers who have taken a look at Warrenville and say, I'd rather be in Warrenville than where I am now. And I expect, given the reputation of our department, we're going to see more of that. So I'm really glad that you've grabbed this thing and taken a hold of it and run with it, because I think it's going to really make our job a lot easier in terms of filling the department. And we're going to get good qualified people also. So well done.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Item number 14, Treasurer Goodman wants to talk about the canvas.
Right, so first let me apologize that I didn't make it clear when I asked that this be put on the agenda, that I would like to suggest to the council that it formally review the canvas when it happens every 2 years. Now, there's no requirement that the city approve the canvas. I remember us doing it back when I was an alderman, and I think Leah tells me that she remembers doing it originally when she was on the council. The canvas is prepared by the election office at the DuPage County Clerk, and it tells two things. It tells us who won the election each time, but it also provides the number of ballots counted, which is what's important when you go and circulate your petitions. So today, over at the county, a lot of people were turning in petitions for the March primary. When we had to turn in our petitions, in the last election, there were 4 aldermen on the ballot, and there was a treasurer election. And we were given the canvas from April 2021. It's the second page in the backup. It's labeled at the bottom, page 24 of 80. And what's important is not the number of people who voted, but the number of ballots counted. So if you look, there was a race for mayor, and the number of ballots counted was 1,972. In the race for clerk, the number of ballots counted was 1,972. If you add up the 4 ward aldermen, the number of ballots counted, you can take my word for it, it was 1,972. If you look there under treasurer, where there happened in 2021 to be no candidate filed, it lists the number of ballots counted as 236, which was just a mistake. And it caused a problem. When I picked up my packet, I went to Julie and said, what do I do with this? 5 to 8% of 907. Well, you need to get signatures from at least 5%, but not more than 8% of the number of ballots counted. But 5 to 8% of 236 didn't overlap at all with 5 to 8% of 1,972. Now, I knew that the right number was 1,972. I also know that people like to find ambiguity and cause challenges when they can, as happened to me, some of you might know, when I ran for in Winfield Township. It ended up costing me several $1,000s to just get somebody to read the law and say what the requirement actually was. So I went back to Julie and said, what do I do with this? And she said, well, this document, that's what we got. It's what came from the Election Commission. So I went with the 1972. I got about 100 signatures, got on the ballot, and there wasn't a challenge. But at that point, I was worried, because anytime there's ambiguity like this, it could possibly happen again. So at that point, I made it sort of a little mission of myself to try and get the Election Commission to acknowledge this and make sure that it didn't happen again. So it was a long story. I won't go into the details. I did end up going through the canvas for the entire county and found that there were 10 cases where this happened. There were 10 units of government for which, on one ballot measure, the number of ballots counted was wrong compared to other ballot measures. And it happened to be, what I was looking for were cases where no candidate had been filed. I got someone at the county to say they'd look into this and get back to me, but then they decided not to. So finally, I had to get a county board member, Sheila Rutledge. She got involved, and she got the deputy clerk to finally get back to me. And much to my relief, I found out that they don't use this software anymore, and so that this particular problem won't happen again. which is what I was after. I knew that 2 years later, you couldn't go back and change a canvas from before, but I did want to make sure this didn't happen again. But anyway, my suggestion is that the city council do something formally every 2 years when there's a Warrenville canvas. Or consider it if they want to.
The recommendation from the administrator was that we put it in front of the attorney to make sure that it's appropriate for us to approve the canvas, and we can put it on the council agenda.
Yes, we would want the committee to make a recommendation to city council, though, so there should be a
Okay.
motion and a formal vote, if that's the direction the committee would like to go.
Someone like to make a motion to go ahead.
Just writing motions tonight. Recommend city council accept the canvas of votes as presented.
Alderman Lockett?
I'd like to make a motion that city council approve the canvas of votes as presented.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Any questions? Alderman Davalos?
Yeah. Has it been is that what you're saying, that it isn't this, it's been changed to be corrected? Or are we voting on this as we're reading it, what we've read, this copy? I'm confused.
I put in the packet both 2021 canvas that I had a problem with and the 2023 canvas where there is no problem.
Okay, so we're voting
But
2020.
my suggestion was really for the future.
Okay.
That at least starting in 2025, that when the canvas is presented, it come to the council in some form.
So we're voting on 2023 right now?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so that would change the motion then to recommend city council direct staff to include the future canvas of votes on a council agenda to be accepted. So you'd want to vote
okay?
against the motion that was was just made, because we had a motion and a second, so we need a vote to vote against that original motion and the motion.
Would Alderman Lockett and the seconder like to withdraw their motion? That's,
Yes.
Nay.
Yes.
and the seconder also? Yes. Okay, one more time.
Before we make another motion. All right, so Dawn, did you get that? Thank you.
May I suggest that the new motion has at the end, subject to attorney review?
It's crazy in the past, the mayor always just, you know, except with the canvases. Alderman Lockett?
I'd like to make a motion that city council directs staff to include future canvas of votes to be accepted, subject to attorney review.
We have a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We have no miscellaneous. We have no closed session. We just need one more motion.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
This conference is no longer being recorded.